Hello and welcome to another Foreman Community Demo. This demo is being live streamed, so if you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out on YouTube or the Foreman channel on IRC. If you have any problems with the live stream, oh yeah, this demo has also been recorded. Yeah, I'll hit record. No, actually, excuse me one sec. I'm asking for consent. Okay, so first hurdle, first wrong thing to happen, already happening. So hello again and welcome. So this demo is being live streamed. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out on YouTube or the Foreman channel on IRC. If you're having any problems with the live stream, this demo is being recorded, so you can rewatch at a later time. So before we begin, we just have a few announcements. Foreman 1.24.3 has been released. This includes support for Ubuntu 20 provisioning, as well as several UI bug fixes. With the release of 2.1 coming soon, this will likely be the last release in the 1.24 line. So now is a good time to start planning to upgrade to a newer supported version. Speaking of newer versions, Foreman 2.1 release candidate 2 is now available. So if you could please help out by testing it and getting it release ready for Foreman 2.1 will add support for installation on EL8 distributions, so any testing around that would be appreciated. Additionally, the default web server being deployed will change from Passenger to Puma, so if you notice any performance impact, this will be useful so we can try and tackle it prior to the final release. If you hit upon any issues when upgrading or installing the release candidate, either let us know on Discourse or through our issue tracker. So on the Katello side, Katello 3.15.1 has been released. This includes several fixes for Pulp 2 to pulpcore migration for file and Docker content types. Katello 3.16 release candidate 2 is now available. Please take a look at the release announcement on Discourse and help get this release ready. We also have a few announcements around upcoming events. Strange. So my slides aren't working. Okay. I don't know why my slides aren't working. Yeah, I don't know why my slides aren't working.
Maybe you just want to go through the community page and just call out the names.
I just have a few more announcements, Rahul. Apologies for the slides. For those who attended the Foreman birthday party last year, you'll remember that there was a session in which Red Hat product management gave an overview of the Red Hat roadmap for Satellite. There'll be another such session with Red Hat product management on June 18th. The event will be live streamed and recorded for those who cannot attend. If you're interested in attending, please add this to your calendar. And speaking of the Foreman birthday party, like everything else, the birthday party will move online this year and will be organized for the most part by Bernard Suttner and the ATEX team. This event will take place on July 28th. So if you'd like to attend, please mark this also on your calendar. And that is everything from me. So I think we can start the demos. And the first demo is Marek, who has some updates on report templates for us. So I will just stop presenting now.
All right, I'm sharing my screen now. All right, so I'll start with the first thing that is an improvement not only for report templates, but for any kind of templates that supports user inputs. So it's about hiding the values, which is mostly handy, I would say, in the job templates in remote execution, both for Ansible and pure SSH remote execution. So there are times where you want to expose or use some user input, but the value can actually be a sensitive value, such some kind of a password. So you don't want other users of your satellite to be able to read that information easily from the UI. So that's what I'm going to show right now. So here, this is the job invocations list, and as I can see here, or in the hint, the satellite password parameter or input here is actually hidden. If I go into details, we also list all the user inputs that were used for the overall job invocation in here. Again, you can see that the satellite password is hidden in here. The same thing if I would run that on multiple hosts, I would see that for each of the template invocation as well. So the value is hidden in here. And it's also hidden in the form, so if someone is looking over your shoulder, they wouldn't see the password you're typing in there. Now, how you can actually define such input so that it would be hidden, it's the definition of the template itself, or template input to be more precise. So if I go to the configure cloud connector here, go to the inputs, here I see I have two inputs. One is satellite user, the second one is satellite password. And I just mark this as the hidden value. So it's very easy. And it's also hidden in the API. So if I look into the API, this is the same job invocation I was showing. You can see here the value is also hidden downstairs. The new flag here, hidden value, is also exported with the template. So if you export and import a template in another format instance, it would also be hidden. So that's for the first feature. I'm going to jump to the second one, which is really related to the report templates only. Let me open, for example, this template that generates the list of the registered users. And if we try to do the preview, you can see this is the CSV representation of the report. And the order in here is basically based on the order we get the data from the database. So you don't have any control over how to sort this data. It may or may not be a problem. If this is just a CSV or JSON, you can import it into some spreadsheet software and then do the ordering in there. But sometimes it's useful, especially for HTML reports, to just order data in here. And how to do that? For that, I'll need to update the code. So I'll clone the template first. So it's going to be this user registered users clone. I'll open the editor. And if you're familiar with the report templates, you know at the end you need to basically render the report. And in here you can customize the rendering now. So there's a new keyword argument in here called order. And you can specify the name of the column you want to order by. So for example, if you want to sort this list by login, you just type like here. I don't want to go through the whole rendering, but also preview will do in here. So you can see now all records are actually ordered by the login in here. You can also specify multiple columns. So let's start first by email. And then if there are two people with the same email address, then use login. So to show that, now you can see it was reordered. And another thing is you can also specify a reverse order true that will just change the order, basically, or reverse the order, as the name suggests. Now, this means you would need to hardcore the order into the template, which is not that handy, right? Sometimes it may be good, like you define the default order maybe, but you can also use the power of inputs. So instead of hard-coding the value in here, you can make it the user input. Let's call it order. Then you define an input with such name. And you can list options in there. So we have login, email, we can specify more options in here and store it. And now if we go ahead and generate this, we have this nice little input in here. So the resulting report would be ordered by a specified value. And that's really all I have for today.
Thanks, Mark. I think there was one question so far, and something I think was based on the first presentation. Will there be support for Fedora CoreOS install with Ignition?
I'm not entirely sure if this is related to the demo, or maybe I'm not understanding the question.
Maybe, or you can shed some light. You have.
Or maybe if the person can jump into the RC channel, I'll be there. My nick is mhulan. Just ask me directly. That might be easier.
And is there any other questions that are outstanding?
Yeah, I have a question. So the hidden feature that we spoke about, right? The hidden password feature, does it also work for Hammer already? Like, is it implemented in Hammer?
So if you use Hammer, when you specify the password on a command line interface, you specify it so that it's in plain text. But if you want to show the details about the job invocation, you would receive the hidden value with the asterisks, because it's hidden in the API reply as well.
Got it, thanks.
No more questions other than that.
Okay, thanks very much, Mark. The next is Rahul with authentication of users in Hammer CLI.
Thank you, Melanie. I will present my screen. Is my screen visible?
Not yet, no. Starting now. And now.
Okay, so in Hammer, usually we have now we have two ways for authentication. One is authentication using basic authentication, and other one is using the OAuth parameter. So if we see right now, there is if you go in the Hammer and sessions folder, there is no session created right now. When a session in Hammer is created, there is a file with session content created in this particular repository. But since there is no user logged in right now, we don't have any file created. And as I already mentioned, if you do Hammer auth login, you have two options now. One is basic and other one is the OAuth. Now let's try to log in with one of the OAuth types. In OAuth, we have two options. One is through the password grant method, and other one is the code grant. So for this demonstration, we will go with the password grant method, in which you provide like options like token endpoint and client ID and username and password. Please ignore the warnings though. And then we see that we have successfully logged in with the user XYZ. It's just a dummy user.
All okay, Rahul? Yeah, I think we lost poor Rahul. I can just give him a second if he doesn't come back. can continue on to the next one. You back with us, Rahul?
Yep. Should I start again? I'm so sorry. I think just the internet went off or something like that.
No worries. Yeah, maybe start again.
Okay. I'm sorry for this. Okay, so explaining it back again. So we have two types of login in Hammer now. One is the basic and the auth. So let's try to log in with the auth password grant method. In the password grant method, you require the token endpoint, the client ID, and username and the password. So we try to log in with that. And once we log in, we realize that there is a file created, a session file created. Let's look at the contents of this session file and try to understand what's there inside it. So we have just the session ID, which contains the session ID and the username of the user. So till now, it's the same way how I used to work earlier. And let's do a Hammer OS list and just see if everything's working fine and we're able to access the resources. Now I have set the session idle timeout in Foreman for 2 minutes. So for 2 minutes, I had paused this video, and coming back, I would like to see like what's there in the Hammer configuration file. Now, if you observe closely in the Hammer session file, there is one important setting that we need to do before trying to log in is the user sessions true. We need to make it true. The other very important thing to notice here is that we have introduced these new options, which has a default auth type. So we have three methods, as mentioned earlier. One is basic auth, and in the auth, we have two types. One is the password grant flow, and the other one is the authentication code flow. So right now we're using the password grant flow. And what I've done is I've uncommented these 3 lines of code, which define the default auth type. So the importance of this 3 lines is that when the user session expires, the next time when a user tries to do something like Hammer OS list or tries to access any kind of resource, Hammer does not know which auth type to log in from again. So Hammer takes the auth type from this default auth type. And if no auth type is present, if no default auth type is given, it tries to log in with the basic auth. So now user session has expired since I had set it for only 2 minutes. And now if you do Hammer OS list, it will ask you for username and password because the other parameters other than username and password are already present in the configuration. Like we already provided them in the configuration file. So here it is, user is able to log in. Now what I've done is I've commented all the lines over here, and the user session has again expired. So now if I try to log in again with Hammer OS list, then it will ask me for username and password, but this time the auth type, since it is not defined in the configuration file, it will try to log in through the basic auth. It will ask me for a username and password, but if I try to log in again with XYZ, as I was trying to do earlier, it will say not able to authenticate because it will not authenticate through password grant flow, and it will authenticate through the basic auth, which is admin and change me usually. So yeah, that's it from my side, and thank you. If you have any questions, just shoot.
No questions on the chat.
Okay, thanks very much, Rahul, and thanks so much for restarting. What can go wrong tends to go wrong. So if there aren't any questions, or we can take questions later on for Rahul if necessary. So up next is James with publishing content views with pulpcore, pulp RPM filters preview.
All right, thank you, Melanie. Waiting for my screen. Let me know if you can see my screen.
I can see your screen, and just so that people on the live stream are aware, this is a video, so it might appear a small bit smaller than the other presentations, but this is normal. And the way you do it.
Yeah, I apologize for the screen resolution. Next time when I do this, I will get a better resolution so people don't have to squint. Okay, so my name is James Jeffers, and I'm a member of the Katello team. And today I'm going to be showing you some stuff we've been working on as far as supporting Yum content and repositories and publishing content views and using filters for that Yum content. So as you can see, we've got pulpcore enabled for file Docker and now Yum. And we've been using the Pulp RPM plugin up to version 3.3.2 in this demo. So I already have a repository. It's got some packages. Created a content view. I'm going to go ahead and add that to the content view and show it there in the list. There we go. Okay, it's already been synced. So let's go ahead and add some filters. I think the first one we're going to start with is it's going to be a package filter. So it supports the same package types that you would get with Pulp 2. Here we're going to add an inclusion filter so we can specify packages. We'll just name this one Trout. So we should be matching the Trout package in this repository. And there's an example of what it's going to match. And if we publish this, the published content view should have just that one package because that's the rule that we've included. Give it a second to do its thing. And there we go. There shows up one package. You can drill in, see the list of packages, and there it is. There's the Trout. So we can publish a new view, but let's alter the filter. So let's remove the inclusion filter. Let's create a new one. We'll do another package filter. But this time we'll make it an exclusion filter. So we're going to specify a rule that will leave out particular packages. So we'll specify walrus. And there are two packages that match, each having a different version, 071 and 521. So when this is published, we're going to see everything but those two packages. So let's find out. And this is basically the same approach that we supported for Pulp 2. We're just demonstrating that it's working now for pulpcore and Yum content. As published, we see the 30 packages. If we go into that version and look at the list, it's alphabetized, go to the end, no walrus. We also support version filtering on these package filters. So for example, if we go back to this and we're going to modify by version. So we're going to say, let's say everything greater than version 1, it should only filter out one of those packages, and that's the one it should be filtering out. So if we republish, we should see walrus 071, but not version 521. So let's see what happens. Let the promotion complete. 31 packages. Let's go ahead and take a look at the list. And there we go. We've got 071, but not version 521. So working just as we expected it. Okay, let's do one more filter. Let's remove the package filter. We can also filter by errata. So for example, we can identify errata by ID. We'll just say we want to include one. We'll pick that first one, the C erratum. And it will include not only the errata, but any of the packages that are indicated by that errata as well. So again, hitting publish. The new version is going to get promoted and published, and it should have that errata plus the packages that support it. Let's find out. Okay, 3 packages, 1 errata. Let's look at the list. Packages penguin, shark, and walrus. And if we look at the errata, and we drill down to the details, yep, penguin, shark, and walrus. Yep, so those are the ones that should have been copied over. And it was. All right, well, that is basically what we wanted to show you. We also have support for the other package filters as well. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. Reach out to me on IRC. We hope to be seeing this in Katello real soon.
That was great, James. Thank you so much. Ori, any questions or any questions for the previous presentation?
Not yet.
Okay. And no other comments on the feed or everything okay so far?
Yep, everything's fine.
Okay, perfect. So then up next we have Andra with GraphQL for settings, please.
Thank you. You should be able to see my screen with GraphQL console. So I've added a new query and mutation, this time for settings. So you can actually query your Foreman for settings. And this is an example query. For each setting, we want to see ID, description, setting type, and a value. So this is the server response. You can see all the settings with the attributes that I have just specified. So that's query. And let's say we want to update a setting. So for that, we need a mutation. And we will be updating this default administrator email address. So as you can see, we've updated the administrator email and there are no errors. So everything looks good. And that's basically all.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Any questions with that, Ori?
No questions so far.
Okay, perfect. So up next we have Kavita with HTTP proxy support for Google Compute resource. Are you okay to go, Kavita?
Yes. Hello all. So let me share my screen. I hope it's visible to all. Okay, so like the EC2 compute resource for the Google.
Your screen isn't visible yet. It's just, is it just me? As far as the stream is concerned, in my own view, it's black.
Okay.
Yeah, I also just see the black background.
Let me try once again. Is it visible now?
Looks good.
Okay, so like EC2 compute resource, we for the Google Compute resource, we added HTTP proxy field. So if you have the HTTP proxy created using from this tab, then it will get listed here. And once you selected all the communication for Google API will go through this proxy. So if you can see the logs from your proxy logs. And this is pretty much smaller change, but it's like a UI and will add more value to all our users. So yeah, that's it from my side.
That's great, Kavita. I'm glad that we got that working. And if there are no questions, our next presentation then is Samir with Pulp3 Certguard for Katello repositories, if you want to start.
Yeah, hey. So good morning all. My name is Samir Cha, and I am going to present the integration that we have with Pulp Certguard. So just a minute. Yep. Yeah. Are you able to see my screen?
It's perfect, I can see, yeah.
All right. So first I want to run through the demo setup that I have. So here I have a repository which is protected in the sense it is not published via HTTP and only HTTPS. I have a second unprotected repo here which is published via HTTP along with HTTPS. And I have a content view here which has been promoted to dev environment, which is on top of the library environment, and it consists of both the protected and the unprotected repository. And I have a couple of activation keys here. So one is in the library environment and the other one for the dev environment. So I'll present terminal now. Yeah. All right. So here I have a client which is registered to the Foreman server using the library environment activation key. And so what I want to show here is just a minute. Yeah. So here I have a curl here, which is trying to call the protected repo using the HTTPS endpoint. So yeah, as you can see, you'll be able to see the results here. And next, I'll try to curl the same endpoint, but with HTTP. So this is the protected repo. So this should show me an error saying this. All right. And as far as the unprotected repo goes, you should be able to access it using both the HTTPS and the HTTP endpoints. So this is trying over HTTP. And yeah, you should get a result for HTTP endpoint and similarly for HTTPS endpoint. All right, and similarly, we have the same protection at the content view level. So I'll just go ahead and register the same client with the content view key. Yeah, so this test CV is the content view key, and all right, so I'll update the entitlement keys that I have this. All right, so this is the protected repo over HTTPS endpoint in the content view. So you should be able to access it using the HTTPS endpoint, but not through the HTTP endpoint. Yeah. And yeah, that is about it.
That's great, Samir. Thank you very much. we'll just have a minute to see if there are questions, and if not, we'll move on to Chris Roberts with Tracer CLI Additions.
All right, let me try to share my screen here. All right, I should be able to see that. Let me know if you can.
Looks good to me.
Alrighty. As we've talked about before in a couple last demos, we've been doing a lot of work with Tracer. So I showed like the UI part of it. So now I wanted to show some of the highlights you can do with the CLI part of it. So the first thing we can do is we'll list, I have a few hosts here that have traces that need to be resolved and a few that need to be rebooted. So now if we do hammer host list, we can actually see, I probably should have just added a few fields just to sort that and make it look a little bit better. But you can see here that we can actually see the trace status right from the host list. If I wanted to look at an individual host, we could see that as well. We could see the trace status. That was the. So you'll see too that this one needs a reboot. The first one I did was actually my Katello box, and if we don't have a trace, we don't show the that. So that's kind of good as well. So I was kind of glad I actually picked that one. And we can actually see the traces, the details as well for them. So if we do hammer host traces list ID 2. What was the command? Sorry about that. Oh, that's why. Sorry about that. Yeah, so it's host ID when we're dealing with the actual hammer CLI Foreman part of it. So you can see here that we can actually see the traces that the system needs. You can only list the traces through the CLI just because we have to make sure that remote execution is present and so forth. We have a lot of those checks that are in the UI. So we just wanted to keep that section in the UI. That's all I had. Just wanted to show the end of that. And we do have the documentation up now on the Katello on the foreman.org. So on 3.16 and nightly. So with screenshots, and it's very pretty. So if you guys want to see how you can install and go from installing it all the way to resolving traces, all the documentation is present now.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. I don't think we have any questions on that. So we can move next is Partha with manifest import and delete speedup.
Let me turn on my presentation. Hold on. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Perfect, yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. My name is Parthaji. I worked, I think not this demo, but there was some work done before the previous demo where we speeded up manifest import and manifest delete. So let me give you an example. Here I have you see, I have my typical Rel subscriptions. I have a product here, and I synced this. I have a product, and I have just one repo. Like I just synced satellite tools. It's very small, 65 packages, etc. And now I have a content view that has 50 versions. So I have published this content 50 times. In a typical customer scenario, it'll be like far more, a lot more Red Hat repos, a lot more content views, but a lot more versions. This is just for demo purposes. So once I've done this, I go back to subscriptions, and if I delete this manifest and re-import this manifest, so let me see, if I do manage manifest, if I delete it and refresh it, it's going to take it. It's going to be much faster now than what it was before. This is because before we used to have we used to make calls for every published repo. So in some cases we had like 50 plus calls to this refresh. And with the new, so the execution time for the previous manifest delete was, let me see, yeah, previous manifest delete was like about 12 seconds here. And with the speed up, it's more like 4 seconds for the same. And it's similar. It's similar in for manifest import is 15 sec. It used to be 15 seconds, and now it's like 6 seconds. The real scenario is when we have like thousands of repos. So there were some metrics done that said we had like 1,600 repos that used to get refreshed before, and that would take 35 minutes. And with the new changes, it took like 13 seconds or something like that, some small number there. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover.
That's great, Partha. Thanks. And I'm glad that you got to do some of it today. And then up next, we have John Mitch with Katello Content View pagination.
Thanks, Melanie.
Or do you say pagination, actually? Pagination probably, is it?
Yeah, pagination. Yeah. Either one.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen. So in Katello, we've been working on a new content view page. I demoed it last demo, the table, and just a small update on the pagination that's been added. I'm also working on the search currently, but it wasn't done in time for this demo. So it just works normally as any other page in Foreman, but this is all Patternfly 4 components, so you might notice they look a little different. And I have the, you notice it's showing 30 per page. That's actually the Foreman default setting. So it is reading from that. And you can change the amount per page. I think this is also configurable as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just a small update on that.
Well, that looks great, John. Thank you very much. And then we have one final demo from Ian with Katello Pulp 3 module applicability and improvements.
All right, hello everyone. Thanks, Melanie. Let me just present my screen. Okay, great. So let's see here. Last demo, I showed the beginnings of some of the new Katello applicability related stuff, and I have a bit of an update for that. So the latest new feature that we've added to the Katello applicability, which just as a reminder, this is now Katello performing the applicability on its own without relying on Pulp 2 in preparations for Pulp 3, because Pulp 3 doesn't do the applicability calculations anymore. So the latest update we have is module stream applicability. Now, module stream applicability seems a little bit different, but in the end, it's actually very similar to the errata applicability. Essentially, all you have to do to get the module stream applicability is just you end up fetching all of the module streams that are related to the host applicable packages. And this works out because those packages will be considered modular, and they will only be considered applicable if you have the module enabled, which makes the logic easy. But so for this, I'll just give you a quick little demo about how this looks. So you see on my client here, I have 2 installed module streams, one called duck and one called kangaroo. I will just do a quick downgrade on my host. So I'm installing 2 of the earlier versions. So that is downgraded. And if we refresh the page, as long as the task was finished quick enough, we should see that there is an update available. So okay, so now I'm looking at these again. You can see there's a little I here. Now you can see that there's an upgrade available. So in this is a case where, let's say you have a module stream and the repository had updated the package in there. When you resync, you'll see there's an upgrade available. And then if we go back and we update the latest, so we just update duck and kangaroo, you should see that the little upgrade available sign will go away when we refresh the page and reselect our installed module streams. So you see the little I went away because we're on the latest version now. So that's just a quick update for the one update for Katello applicability. I have another one that doesn't involve a demo, but just mentions some improvements we've had. So I have a little presentation here. So with Katello applicability, we realized there were a number of places that we needed to improve the performance, but one main area was with how we were spawning these Dynflow tasks. So originally, we were spawning 1 Dynflow task per host that needed its applicability calculated. And that doesn't have very great performance because there's a decent amount of overhead per Dynflow task, and we can definitely calculate more than just 1 in 1 Dynflow task. So what we decided to do is, well, we calculate n host applicabilities per task, and n is a configurable amount that I'll show here. So this new configurable amount, eventually you'll see it in the settings called applicability batch size. And in order to accomplish this, what we needed to do is we needed a queue for the hosts that neither applicability is calculated. And the reason for this is because you can have hosts updating their packages. You'll have kind of like these requests come in at random, and you need to just have those requests come in on a queue so that you can just pop them off the queue so you don't have to worry about any conflicts or anything like that. So I'll just jump into a little bit how it works. So when the repository regenerate is called, we look at all of the hosts that need regeneration, and then we push them onto this queue here. So push host, and then we push an event to kick off the actual applicability regeneration. So we can look at this event here, and essentially what happens is we just pop off the hosts while maintaining, so we pop off all the hosts that are within that, the bucket, the setting I have there for the maximum applicability size. And then we just spawn new tasks with that amount of hosts. So this pop hosts method I have, where you see host equal Katello applicable host queue.pop hosts, that will automatically pop off that amount that you have in your settings. And this, so far, we've seen that this has increased the performance by quite a bit. And we're going to be doing more testing to see what is the most appropriate default size for the number of hosts per applicability event. And that is all for me. So thank you very much.
That was great, Ian. And I think that there aren't any questions on YouTube or on IRC from what I understand. So we can call it a day, I think. I don't think there's any other presentations. After this, I will post a recording with timestamps as well, so we can watch back. And I was thinking as well, James, that maybe we can upload your video separately, just so that people can have a look at the full thing.
Yeah, I can do that, and I can make sure you get the link for it.
Yeah, or just send it on to me. So I will. I'll just stop the live stream now. So thank you to everyone who attended and to the presenters. Just one sec.